In the last video, we wired up that people list, making sure that as new users come and go, the list gets updated. In this video, we're going to make sure that our text and location messages only get sent to users in the same room. Currently, it gets sent to everybody. We can prove that by opening up a new connection. I'm going to use my name and we're going to join a different room from LOTR, the Office Fans Works. When I join the room, you can see that the people lists are indeed correct. A user in one room does not update the people list for a user in another room. The difference, though, is that the text messages do not follow those rules, neither do the location-based messages. Here we have a text message and a location message as well. If I go over to the chat app for the other room, we get both of those, and this is a problem. We also have the name problem. Currently, user displays for the text message and admin displays for the location message. We want to make sure to use the actual user's name, whether it's Jen in this case or whether it's Andrew. In order to get that done, we are going to need to make some changes to both server.js. Right here, we have our event listeners for create message and create location message. And we're also going to be making some updates over inside of chat.js. And this is actually where we're going to start. Currently, the name user, the incorrect name we saw over inside of the browser, that comes from right here. The client originally sent the name, but this is no longer going to be the case. The name is stored by the server, so we're going to remove this as a required property from create message. We're just going to be sending the text across. Now with this in place, we can modify the event listener over inside of server.js. Inside of server.js, create message takes those two properties and it stuffs them right here into generate message. Instead, we're going to find the user using users.getUser, and we're going to do something with it. Right here, we can go ahead and delete our console.log statement for create message, and we're going to make a variable user, setting it equal to users.getUser. This is the method we created over here, getUser, which takes the ID. We can pass in the ID, socket.id, and now we can do something with the user. We only want to do something if a user actually exists, which means that we're going to check if the user exists using this statement, and we're also going to make sure that the text that got passed along was a real string using after and is real string, and we'll be passing in message.text. This means if someone tries to send across an empty message or just a bunch of spaces, it's not going to get sent to everybody else. Now inside of here, all we're going to do is actually emit the message. We know it's valid, so we do want to emit something. We're going to take this line, cut it out, and paste it right here. Now, currently, this line, it emits to everybody, not just the room the user is connected to. And we also use message.from. We really want to use the name property on user. Your challenge right now is going to be to make those two changes. Emit this event just to the room the user is connected to, and make sure to provide their name right here as opposed to message.from. When you're done, you can refresh your browser tabs, send some text messages around, and you should see the user's name as opposed to what you currently see, which is the static text user. Knock that out, pause the video, and when you're done, click play. All right, getting this done requires some modifications to this line. First up, we want to emit to just a specific room, and we know we can tack on a toCall right here to get that done, passing in the room name. We have access to that on the user object, user.room. Now that we're emitting to just the individual room, we also do want to change the name we use. Instead of message.from, we're going to access the name on the user object, user.name, and there we go. Now we have a much better system for sending those text messages. I'm going to refresh my first tab and my second tab, and we're going to send some text messages around. I'm going to send the number 1 right here, and we do get Andrew, and we do see the number 1. And over inside of our other tab, the message is nowhere to be found because we're just emitting it to users in the Office Fans. If I try to send a message from this first tab, we're going to see it here with the name Jen. And the second tab also looks good. We're not seeing that message from Jen. Now I can go ahead and join a room again. I'm going to use the name Mike, and we're going to join the Office Fans one more time. When I join the room, I do see Andrew and Mike both connected. And if I send a message like should work, I see it here and I also see it in the tab of the other user connected to the Office fans, and once again, it's not visible to someone else connected to a different room. That is all we need to do to get our messages sending correctly. The last thing to do is to wire that up for create location message. Now, as we just saw, we were also able to fix the validation issue. If I try to hit enter right now, nothing happens. I don't get moved out of the box, the focus doesn't change, and no message is sent. Right now, I am smashing the enter key and nothing's happening, which is great. Over inside of Atom, your challenge is going to be to fix create location message. You're going to want to find the user just like we do above. If there is a user, you're going to want to emit this to just people in the same room. Instead of providing admin as the name, you're also going to want to use the user's real name. Once you're done, you can go ahead and test this out by refreshing those tabs and trying to send the location around. Make sure it still gets sent to users in the same room and make sure it does not get sent to users in other rooms. Pause the video, knock that out, test it, and when you're done, go ahead and click play. To do this one, I am going to start by fetching the user since we are going to need to use the information on that object. We're going to make a variable user, calling users.getUser, and we're going to pass in that socket ID, socket.id. This is identical to the line we used above. Now, we only want to emit a message if we do find a user, so I'm going to check if the user object exists. If it does, we can take this line, cut it out, and copy it right here. If it does exist, we are going to emit new location message. Now, we do still need to emit it to just a specific room by adding on a call to and passing in the room name. User.room stores that information. And last but not least, we do want to update the name. Instead of sending the static admin name, we're going to use the user's real name, user.name. With this in place, create location message is now wired up to be private and to send across the correct information. Over inside of Chrome, I'm going to go through my tabs one at a time, giving them a refresh. And on the third tab, I am going to be sending the location. This is going to take just a couple of seconds to actually fetch it. And I see it right here with the name showing up correct. We have Mike, and we have a link to view the location inside of Google Maps. Now, if I go to the second tab, the user who is also connected to the Office fans, I see the exact same location message. And if I go to the first one, you can see that Jen does not have access to that message because she's in a different room. She can always share her location with anybody in her room that happens to be nobody. This message is not going to show up anywhere because no one else is connected to LOTR. With that in place, we are now done. Our messages are private. They're only going to be visible to folks in the same room. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up by committing our changes. I'm going to shut down the NodeMon server, use clear, and we can run git status to see what kind of changes we have. Here we just have two files. They're modified, which means we can use git commit with the AM flag, whether it's separate or the same. They have identical feature sets, and then we provide our message string. Send messages to only people in same room. Awesome. With this in place, we can go ahead and use git push to push this up to GitHub. And I'm also going to go ahead and deploy to Heroku using git push Heroku master. Once it's deployed on Heroku, we can take just a quick moment to make sure all of those features we just added are still working as expected. I expect they will still work, but it's definitely worth checking out because the environments are a little different and there's always a chance something can go wrong. Now, if something does go wrong, as a reminder, you can always use Heroku logs. This is going to show you the logs on the server. It's usually kind of cryptic, but when an error occurs, you're going to see a really big block. It's usually pretty easy to spot, and it usually contains useful information as to what went wrong. It looks like our app deployed successfully, so I can use Heroku Open to open it up inside of my browser. And once it's open, we can actually visit some chat rooms. I'm going to close down my localhost tab, and I'm going to join as Andrew the room, Philadelphia. Once I'm in the room, I am going to send a message, and then I'm going to add a second user to the room, localhost 3000, excuse me, not localhost. We want to visit this website, our Heroku app. I'm going to visit that. We'll join the room as Vikram, and we can join the exact same room, Philadelphia. When I join, I see the people list updates for both, and sending messages does still work. Messages from tab 2 do appear in tab 1. This is great. All this is possible because we wired up Server.js, keeping track of users over time. When they first join, we add them to the list. When they send messages, we make sure to use their information, and when they leave, we remove them from the list. This ensures that the people list is always up to date and that messages are only getting sent to others in the same room. That's it for this one. I will see you next time.